Yeah, you're going to zoom through. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. Hello, my name's Yvette and I'm delighted to be here for Friday Report Out. I've not been in this lecture theatre before. I don't know if anybody else has, but it's very posh, but a little bit difficult to find. So we know that the team from Value Stream 5, RPIW3, are probably on their way, but they're actually coming over from St James's, so they might be shuttling, finding the Dental Institute and then finding the lecture theatre. So we thought we would go ahead anyway, because we have got an RPIW report out from Value Stream 3, Critical Care, neurosurgery, and I know that you've had a busy week and that you're reporting out on the progress that you've made. So can the team come and give their report out, please? Can I check, have we got consent to tweet?
Yes.
We have, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hello, my name is Chris Hunt. I'm the KPO Specialist and Workshop Lead for this RPIW, which is the third in Value Stream 3, which is the step back down from critical care into neurosciences. So this is our project form, and we decided to look at ward rounds so we can help improve the flow across the departments. So the medical ward rounds is a complex clinical activity providing high quality safe care for our patients in a timely and relevant manner. They provide opportunities for multidisciplinary teams to come together to review patients' conditions, but also engaging with the patients and the carers to make a shared decision about their care. We're also very aware of the pressures and time constraints that we put on our staff and when we ask them to perform tasks that we don't necessarily give them time to do. And we also spent a lot of time this week just defining the purpose of a ward round. So I'm going to let the team tell you all about what we've been up to this week.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Parlin. I'm the team leader for this workshop. This is our target progress report. We decided to measure lead time, which is seconds per patient. 87 the baseline. Our target to increase that to 225. Similarly, direct contact with the patient, just 16 seconds of the time on the ward round directly with the patient, and the team set out to try and increase that to 150. Quality measures. We wanted to make sure that introductions were effective for our patients using "Hello, my name is." The baseline said that 97% of the time we failed to do this, so we were aiming to get that right all of the time. Similarly, we wanted to standardise the way that information was shared on the ward round. The baseline told us there was variation all of the time, and we wanted there to be variation none of the time. And finally, the clinically defined discharge date. We wanted to make sure that for every patient that was determined on the ward round. The baseline said we didn't manage that at all. We wanted to make sure it was happening every patient, every time. And the ward round handover itself, we wanted to improve its 5S value. It started at level 1. Our tack time calculation describes the pace of the work to meet demand. It started at, 7,200 seconds for 32 patients, which meant that we had 225 seconds per patient to deliver the ward round within the time available.
Hello, my name is Steve Wilson. I'm the Clinical Director and Process Owner for the RPIW. And I'd first like to say that we're very grateful to Dawn Hransky. She put in a huge amount of work observing numerous ward rounds across a period of time before we started the process. And really, just to put some context around why we're doing this, we started out with a clinical anxiety that the ward round wasn't delivering a quality service for patients and wasn't delivering time-based quality for the staff who were doing it. So the clinical anxiety started off with the quality metrics, and that was supported through the fact that, as Jimmy said, 87 seconds of time was spent with each patient, of which only 16 was actually spent directly interacting with that patient. We were anxious about the experience patients were receiving, and that was again echoed insofar as only 1 out of 32 patients had an introduction from the doctor who was running the ward round. And finally, there was an awful lot of time that we felt was being wasted through the ward round, and this was demonstrated in the percent load chart, which sort of shows that 50% of the ward round time we didn't feel was adding significant value to the patient's journey. But at the same time, we were also conscious that the ward round has to take a certain length of time, but everyone has somewhere to be afterwards. So we were very keen, in a different sort of way from other RPIWs, not to increase the lead time too much in this RPIW. We want to keep the times within the parameters that we've currently got, but just deliver much higher quality in that process. So the numbers do speak for themselves. We think they say tell the story we need to tell, but realistically they don't tell the whole story. So I'm going to hand over to Fiona, my co-process owner, who's going to tell the story directly from the patient's perspective. And I'm going to emphasise the fact that everything Fiona says has come directly from genuine patient feedback.
Thanks. Hello, my name's Fiona. I'm a patient. I had an accident yesterday and I had surgery yesterday. I'm normally fit, well, independent working adult. I woke up this morning feeling dazed, groggy, sore and a bit nervous because I don't know what's happening and I don't know what to do next. 3 people have walked into my bay. I can see one of them's in a nurse's uniform and 2 of them are in normal clothes. I don't know who they are. They start talking at the end of my bed. I hear my name mentioned. I hear the words pain and wound and other words that I don't know. I can hear one of them ask the nurses, can he walk? I don't know why they don't ask me this, I'm right here. Finally one of them turns to me and says that they will get a physiotherapist or maybe an occupational therapist to see me, and then they'll see how it goes. One mentioned to the other one that I could go home soon. They leave and start talking about the man in the bed opposite. I don't know how my operation went. I don't know if I can get out of bed. I don't know what an occupational therapist is. I still don't know who they are, and I don't know if I'm okay. I try to attract their attention and the nurse says that she'll come back to me after the ward round and fill me in on what's going on. Based on this sort of experience, we created 79 ideas forms, both from the home team and the away team, us, and some themes emerged from this. One of them was releasing registrar's time for the comprehensive ward round, which allows for more patient interaction, consultant-led ward rounds, having a set standard for the ward round, and having AHPs in the ward round. Laura's next going to speak to you about and introduce the point of view of the staff in the AHPs.
Hello, my name is Laura. So AHPs don't currently attend any of the ward rounds, and it was felt that ward round was missing important therapy information which could potentially lead to delayed discharges and conflicting information being given to patients. But as an AHP, I was concerned that the suggested solutions from this RPIW would be that we would need to attend every ward round, and with our already limited resources, I was worried that this would mean less time with our patients. So our first trial of ward round we did attend, and it was really useful to update the medics and the patients on their discharge plans. But I was very happy that as part of our discussions as a team, our AHP feelings on losing time with patients was really valued, and it was felt that we could use PPM much more comprehensively to update the medics and the patients on where we were up to with therapy and what their discharge plan was. So the second trial of ward round, the medics used the therapy information, and this meant that the AHPs were free to treat the patients within that time. We're also hoping that we'll be able to save even more therapy and nursing time by decreasing the need for a separate ward round.
Hello, my name's Becky, and I'm going to talk to you about the difference between the home and the away team. So we thought, as the away team wrapped up in our little RPIW suite, that we come up with all the right answers. We wrote a list of everything that we thought a good ward round would look like, everything that should be included, and we came up with what we thought was the perfect solution. So we went to see our home team that were working on the ward, I keep getting that mixed up, and we presented to them exactly what we thought was going to solve all of these issues, which we were quite excited about, and yeah, we did almost skip onto the ward. We presented to them our tick list, which was all the things that we thought would help make the ward round better. Unfortunately, that didn't go down quite as well as we'd first hoped, and we were promptly escorted off the ward back to our safe haven to improve what we'd started with. So the good feedback from the ward was that the patients felt like they got a really good information. They were told everything that they needed to be told. The nurses had lots of information that they wouldn't normally get. The AHPs felt like they could make decisions from ward round and they had all the information they needed. The medics were pleased that they had the information to hand. Unfortunately, the tick list was seen as us denying people the opportunity to be able to make their own decisions, and that we were kind of using it as a stick to beat them with to make sure that they covered everything that we thought was important rather than letting them be autonomous. So we came up with another form on PPM, which is a bit more intuitive, which drags things in, which prompts people to do things but doesn't beat them if they don't. And this is what we came up with, which is obviously a big bit of paper. Luckily, James has got some amazing PPM skills and managed to whip that into a PPM form in no time at all. And I'll let him talk to you about how we did that now.
So hi, my name's James, I'm one of the neurosurgery SHOs. So we had a discussion with Martin, who's one of the developers for PPM. So we took to him our form that we designed on paper and said to him kind of what can the system do, what are the capabilities of this system. So he talked us through the future state and kind of what we're thinking in the future of what a ward round would look like, giving us multiple different widgets which we can drag in which show you different information. But as this work's ongoing at the moment and not yet available to the team, we wanted to rapidly make a change for our ward and improve the information that we had available to the ward round to deliver the kind of the views from the multidisciplinary team. So this is the Hundr overview, which is available in PPM currently, and we wanted to better utilise kind of what we've got now to make this change. So as you can see here, there's multiple different boxes, and the bottom left-hand corner of the handover comments box is where all the individual allied health professionals are going to pull their information together. So the occupational therapists, the physiotherapy, the SALT, the dietitians, the bed managers, they're all going to individually update this section to have the information at the fingertips of the staff on the ward round. So when we want to ask that question about where's this patient waiting to go, you can see they're waiting for a spinal injuries unit. Has their VTE risk assessment been done? What is their news score? Are they on IV antibiotics? And then this information then can be dictated by the registrar on the ward round, and that will then go to one of the secretaries who will type that up and input that information into PPM. So that not only allows us to have the information readily available, it then frees up some time for the doctor on the ward to have more meaningful discussions with the patient and engage with them, which is ultimately what we want to do. So we needed to say, so if this is what we want and we want people to do this, what do we actually have to do to make this happen? So we broke down all the different processes into different sections, wrote them all down on post-it notes, and made sure that we knew that at every step what we needed to do, who needed to do it, and what we needed to do to ensure that that's done in a timely fashion.
Hello, my name is Catherine. So after the ward rounds this week, we've been completing questionnaires with the patients to get some feedback from them on how they thought the ward rounds went. We managed to obtain 14 electronic results. Some patients were unable to engage in the questionnaires because of reduced GCS, reduced cognition and possible speech problems. 11 out of 14 felt they knew what they needed to do to be ready for discharge, and 10 out of 14 were aware of the current progress and plans. So this hopefully potentially demonstrated that the handover section was contributing well to the ward rounds. Some other results, that 9 out of 14 were unsure on exactly who they were speaking to. So we're really wanting to push the importance of hello, my name is. And only 4 out of 14 patients were aware of their expected discharge date. We're going to have further discussions to see how we can implement this better. Some quotes from the patients, they felt, one of them said, I felt part of the discussion about me. Another one said, I love it that they stopped to talk to me instead of rushing past me. And another one, I was told everything, I can't complain.
So returning to our target progress report and the scores at the end of the week. So the lead time, we were aiming for 225 seconds. We did exceed that yesterday, but today's value was 103, so in the interest of fair play, we are 18% better than when we set out. Lead time, final box speaks for itself. That's direct patient time, all of it spent with the patient, so over 500% better than when we set off on Monday morning. Quality metrics, I'm going to talk about standardisation, 100% improvement, amazing delivery by the team there. Can we sustain it? We'll come back and tell you in 30 days. Similarly for this estimated date of discharge, it's caused some really interesting dialogue. The team are going to continue to work on it. The score looks good, but there's a little bit behind that to work on still, I think. Hello, my name is. a tricky one. We've got to 100%. Sorry, we got significantly better and then dropped off a little bit. So again, it's a work in progress. But we've got some really good ideas, and it's still better than we set out. 5S has gone up one level to level 2 from level 1, which in a week is still pretty decent effort.
So a newspaper identifying tasks to be completed. Most importantly, in creating a team agreement including expectations of the staff involved and set standards for ward round. Some other issues we've identified is how we as professionals understand the estimated date of discharge, and how we as staff understand the importance of introduction, hello my name is, from the point of view of our patients.
So that just leads me to say our key learnings, and we seem to repeat the same things over and over again, but change is hard. This isn't the easy thing we're trying to do, especially in a week and engaging a lot of people. So collaboration is the key to this, not only in the week but beforehand. We've realised that we still fall short of preparation beforehand that we're engaging our teams with. It was interesting the reaction we got. I think the team were very surprised the first couple of days, but then actually once we got on board with the team, got them engaged with us and offered them a free lunch, this kind of came around a little bit. And actually on the end of the week we've got some really good ambassadors for this work for us, and it's all about sharing the information. Information is key to making decisions, and we need to have the information in the right place at the right time to make those decisions. Ultimately what we want to do is deliver exceptional results. That just leads me to say thank yous. So some really big thank yous to some team members that can't be here today. So Dawn, unfortunately, is on a sick bed, but we hope she's watching. Hello, Dawn. Asim and Kirsty, who've been with us all week but just couldn't make it today. And then the staff out on the home team, so the nursing staff on L24 and L25, the physiotherapists, the occupational therapists, the dietitians and SALT teams. They've been amazing this week, not to mention some of our other medical colleagues. So Matisse, Sol, Rob, and many of our other colleagues, John and Ian. The medical secretaries who have been an absolute godsend to us this week and have agreed to continue to support this work with us, and the quote from the medical secretaries was, we'd like to do anything we can to relieve some pressure on the ward round. So that was a really great result from them. IT and the PPM team have been great with us this week, coming and sharing where the direction of travel is going for PPM and how we can support that on this journey. Obviously the patients are engaging with us this week and helping us with their feedback. But most importantly, this team here, because these guys have been absolutely great. Jimmy for stepping in at the last minute and being a hero for us. But yeah, these guys have worked exceptionally hard this week and we couldn't have done it without them. So thank you very much.
Well done.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to open it up now for questions. So has anybody in the audience got a question or a comment for the team? Ellen?
It was a comment and a compliment. I'm really reassured that you talked about some of your early, and I am going to use the word failure in the week, where you've come together and brought a broad cross-section of minds together and still learned that some of the things that come out of this don't necessarily resonate with your wider colleagues. And it's a point to say, well done for coming back and keeping going at it to produce something that's really going to work for you, because I imagine that moment didn't feel great after the effort that you've put into it. And so it was just really to say thank you and well done, and remember those moments because you've delivered something fantastic beyond that point, so thank you.
Dean?
Hello, my name's Dean. Thank you, that was a great presentation. Really enjoyed hearing the enthusiasm and the story. Kept me captivated on that. I was just a question about the amount of patient contact time, that sort of 16 seconds with the patient to increase to 150 seconds. So clinicians will often say, if only I could spend more time with a patient, my life would be much easier, I'd be more satisfied. When you sort of took that back in terms of, one, this is how much time you spend and this is what we want to increase to, what was the reaction, what was your thoughts around that?
So it was generally very good. I think what's quite interesting is if you go and ask a clinician how much time do you spend with the patient on a ward round, they'll tell you what they think that is. And if you take the data to them and say, actually, this is how much it was, they were genuinely quite shocked and surprised. Because I think they felt that the whole of that time when they were stood around the computer was
with the patient.
Patient interaction, but of course it isn't, and the patients don't see it that way. So they were very keen to try and adapt in a way that would engage that patient, make them feel part of that conversation, so that it is no decision about me without me, but at the same time actually have a functional ward round that could deliver the quality and the important bits that it needed to, but within the time frame. Time is an interesting one, because to deliver a certain set level of quality, you do need a certain set amount of time, but every single person on that ward round has got umpteen other jobs that they have to go and do, which is why when we looked at lead time and cycle time, we were very clear that this was not an RPIW about reducing the lead time. This was not going to make the ward round shorter. But we were also very clear that we didn't want to make it significantly longer. Because if we make it significantly longer, it won't stick. So this was purely about trying to increase the quality within the same amount of time. And I think everybody sort of got that and felt that that was a really, really important patient-centred thing to do.
I think that was when it turned around as well, when they realised that we had their interest at heart. It wasn't us kind of going in with our tick box and saying this is what you need to do, but it was us saying we want to help you do your job better and spend more time with patients. And that's when the penny dropped, and one of the doctors on the first day that wasn't very keen on the checklist actually on the second day said, wow, that was amazing, thank you for listening to our feedback and coming back with that brilliant development. So that was really nice.
I just wanted to say, from a professional and a patient perspective, I'm just so glad that you're doing this piece of work. I remember, Steve, you had a very kind of similar observation when you came into post. Coming into post 18 months ago and actually observing and doing a ward round in one of the neurosurgical wards, I think it was one of my starkest moments, really, because at the time I was saying, I'm so sorry, the patient can't understand what you're saying, and I think that I held them up completely on that ward round. And I just know that this is something that we've all wanted to address and do. I think the reaction to the checklist, I think actually was a fair one for the professionals, really, because it's about that cultural and belief that I've got to change, and rather than just filling out a form, and it's that bit that's going to take time, because this way of working has been in place for a long time, and it's just how we kind of change that. So for me, thank you.
We never expected that we'd give them the checklist and that they would use it. It was just our sort of first iteration, but I think when you're in that little bubble, you forget to explain that a little bit sometimes when you go back to the home team.
I mean, honestly, you've done a fantastic job, and as Sarah says, it's a really vital piece of work. I think if we did those same observations in other specialties, other wards, we would find a great deal of similarity. But I have to say to you that as a paediatrician, I'm really quite shocked at the lack of introduction from staff to the patient, because to me that would just be a complete and utter no-no. So I've got a question. I don't want any names, but you had a significant I might want some names outside, but you had quite a significant variation. You had one ward round where there was everybody, there was 100% introduction. Was it about different teams, or was it that just they thought they'd got it, so it was the same team the next day, but they just didn't remember? Because then you come back to your checklist.
It was your checklist that made the difference with that.
And it was the same team every day.
It was the same team every day, and what's really interesting, I think anyway, is that, and I've seen it in various different areas, not just on ward rounds. Doctors will go to patients and say hello to the patient the first time they meet them. The next time they go back to them, they will assume that the patient has remembered who they are. But of course, many of our patients are cognitively impaired. They may have had a head injury. They've probably had an operation if they're lucky, or they may have a reduced GCS. And they'll have seen 20, 30 other healthcare professionals and other people in that intervening period of time. And I think the message we need to get across to our team is, just because you remember who the patient is, does not mean the patient remembers who you are. So they went into the second day of ward round with the best intentions, and they did indeed introduce themselves very clearly to the people they'd not met before. But they made an assumption that everybody else would remember who they were, and I think that was one of the key messages. It came through sort of later in the week, so we've not been able to address it fully, but it's part of sort of the rocks in our shoes that we're going to use to sort of increase the learning for the next up to the 30-day report out.
And it could be, maybe you've thought of this, but it could be that maybe half an hour after the ward round you could have somebody go and ask the patients on the ward round, can you remember who saw you? And I was on a call last week about 7-day services, and there's a lot of interest in whether or not the patient experience at the weekend is worse than the patient experience in the week. And one of the suggestions was about asking the patients who they had seen. Its particular focus, as you know, is about consultancy and visibility and engagement. And actually, one trust had done a piece of work, and the patients had no idea who they'd seen, even if the person had actually introduced themselves. So you're absolutely right, the patients do need that every time. And you might say, hello sir, do you remember me from yesterday? I'm Dr. So-and-so, or I'm...
Yeah, and we had exactly that conversation, and there were a couple of other things that we felt might improve on that. So I think we're probably going to introduce a sort of hello, my name is Kanban that will stick to the back of the laptop that's used for the ward round that says your doctor today is, and that'll be the lead doctor for the ward round. And also, I think the other message we need to get out there is just because you are cognitively impaired or don't speak that much English or have a reduced GCS does not mean that you don't deserve an introduction. And it's one of the messages that comes through from intensive care. Every time you go and approach a patient on an intensive care unit, you should introduce yourself to them and tell them what you're going to do to them, because you don't know what they might remember when they wake up. And I think that's perhaps something that out on wards is not as well known, perhaps.
Fiona, thank you very much for being the patient and providing the patient voice today. That's been really important. I don't know if you've done that all week. And James, you must be our most experienced junior doctor now for our PIWs. So fantastic. Have you all enjoyed the week?
Yeah.
It's been hard work though.
Yeah. It's been nice to focus on just one problem though, because we were saying if we try to address this without the RPIW, it would take us years, because you never get time to come back and finish bits of work.
Yeah.
So making the time to do it all in 1 week is really good.
Yeah, sure.
I know you mentioned about in 30 days doing a report out again, see how it's working. What's the long-term process of this to make it sustainable change? Make sure that it stays implemented.
It's supposed to be rolling it out to because obviously on ward 24 and 25 there's 3 different ward rounds, so initially it'll be on to see how it goes on 25, then a trial on the cranial patients on 24 and 25, and then we need to try and engage the other medical teams to get it out to do the 2 ward rounds, so that we've got 3 really comprehensive ward rounds every day on both wards, and then from that it should make massive improvements, so hopefully we'll be able to just keep pushing forward with it.
So just in terms of how it works, this team done a great job this week. You heard the newspapers, their commitment to keep this going forward and to come back and tell you how they're getting on with it. Beyond that, our value stream sponsor team, which is a group of senior leaders in this space, meet monthly or more frequently than that, and they will own this going forward. So when we look to think about what lessons we do want to spread and share, and what we really should be rolling out to the broader piece, be that in neurosciences or beyond, you know, with some of these messages, it'll be that team's responsibility, and beyond them, vet and the other execs sit and digest this information at, at a really high level, and they will be looking at what of this should be getting spread throughout the hospital. So there's a clear pathway of communication that means that the work that's being done on a micro level, where appropriate, should be going much wider.
And I think, sorry,
I was just going to say, we'll keep reiterating to the team that the hard work actually starts now, so from Tuesday, because it's bank holiday. And these guys have got a really tough task, but they also need you guys to really support them with this, because they can't do it on their own. So there's lots of little pieces that we need everybody's engagement with, and together, hopefully, you can really push this forward.
And I think if you think about how we've gone about going to naked below the elbow, this is going to be about needing to prompt and to say, oh, you know, Mr. Corns, you didn't say hello, my name is. And but being able to say that without fear of somebody turning around and saying, you don't need to tell me what to do. But actually this is about a cultural change in terms of that element. I think the methodology, Helen, is about if you can do this over 30 days, 60 days and 90 days, that actually it becomes embedded.
So that, yeah, the principle is that, you know, all of the work, we shouldn't be giving any teams work that they shouldn't be able to practically sustain over the next month. But as Chris says, doing something differently from the way you did it yesterday is really hard. So you have to work together and prompt each other to do these things. But the principle is at 90 days, you've demonstrated that you can sustain that as the way that we do things, and then we'd be looking at sharing that wider in the organisation. But they might, you know, they might learn that it's hard and changing people's behaviour is hard, so they might report beyond 90 days. So, you know, this work continues to report out until they demonstrate it's a habit. That's the discipline of it.
The other thing I think is probably worth pointing out is we're trying to, so there's two things. One, what we're doing is actually overlapping quite a lot with the digital ward, because that's essentially what we're trying to make, is our own version of a digital ward, but perhaps before the PPM system keeps up with it. And what we're trying to do is make this easier than what they were doing before. Because if we make this easier than what they did before, why wouldn't they use it? And why wouldn't everyone else use it?
Thank you very much indeed, and we look forward to hearing in 30 days how you've got on. But Catherine, James, Laura, Becky, Fiona, Steve, Jimmy and Chris, thank you very much indeed. So, now we've got Helen and Nicola. Nadine, sorry. Coming to give us their 60-day report out. And actually, they've been working on some very similar things, haven't you, on the top floor in acute medicines.
Hi, I'm Helen Fairman. I'm one of the process owners of this RPIW.
I'm Nadine Shakespeare, and I'm the other process owner of this RPIW. So for our RPIW, we've been tasked to look at the process of the MDT meeting and whether it add values to each patient. We found initially that a lot of the patients spent a lot of time waiting when nothing was actually being done for them. So therefore we wanted to try and overcome this. However, as we were going through, we found actually there was a benefit for every patient being discussed at the MDT meeting, so that everyone knew what was happening with every patient. And therefore, we tried to come up with a solution that meant that MDT could be done as a smoother and slightly quicker process.
So one of the things that we've implemented, and unfortunately we didn't have an IT whiz on our RPIW week, so we're stuck with this, but actually it's worked quite well. So it's literally a map of the way that J27, where we've primarily been doing the work. So we've got the red team, the blue team, the green and yellow team, and then all of the NDAs on the side. So we put all the patients in the beds, their initials, and we allocate whether it's an acute physician or an elderly medical doctor that will see the patient. Once each patient has been seen, we tick the box, and it kind of gives us a visual of where we're up to with the ward round, so we can meet for the MDT promptly. And one of our issues was that it was taking quite a long time to gather everyone together to actually have the meeting, up to 12 minutes I think. So if we can see where we're up to, it gives everybody an idea of what time MDT is going to take place.
We also then found that with the doctors changing over, that sometimes they'd come onto the ward and they don't know how our ward works and what we're expected. So we worked alongside the consultants and we've come up with what we're calling the AMU daily plan. So that as the new junior doctors come onto the ward, they can have a quick look at the board and just see how our ward runs and what's expected of them throughout the day. As then we've gone forward at our 30-day report out, we'd found that sometimes the junior doctors were kind of saying too much in our debrief meeting, as they weren't really clear on what was expected, and that obviously then added to our lead time. So with that, we've then come up with a little plan. So it's just next to the plan, and it just tells them what's expected at debrief, and then underneath it's got a little example of a patient presentation.
So looking at our TPR, you can see the baseline lead time was 40 minutes 30 seconds for our MDT/debrief to take place. It's good because we've sustained 22 minutes from the 30-day and the 60-day report out. I know our initial target was 7 minutes, but that was when every patient wasn't being discussed, and we decided that it was beneficial for the patient perspective for everybody to be discussed. So yeah, we hope to improve that by 1 minute and 15 seconds by the 90-day report out.
The other thing to mention here was this setup production. As we'd first started looking at it, it was taking 12 minutes to get everyone assembled and in the room, because no one quite knew when we were going to be ready to start, and so then you would get ready and you had to then go and find everyone, and people wouldn't necessarily be on the ward. If we had, say, the EDAT team, they might be on the next ward, so you'd have to ring them or bleep them and get them across. So we'd found that with our work, we then set a target, so everyone knew that ward round would begin at 11:30, so everyone could kind of be around. We'd get everyone together, and if, say, we need another 5 minutes, we'd say, we'll just be 5 minutes, go away, and then they'd come back and meet. We found as we've gone forward, the time's gone back up to 5 minutes, but we think that everyone's kind of gone with the target of 11:30 is when we're ready to start, whereas we found that now the ward round's actually a little bit quicker. It's sometimes 11:15 or 11:20 that when we're ready, and then everyone isn't actually on the ward at the time, so again we're having to go away and get people and pull them back in so that everyone's there and ready to start.
So I think we're going to look at making it the target even earlier now, so that we hopefully get that cell reduction back down to 1 minute. We've got some feedback from some of the boards here. I didn't even I was looking up there. We've got some feedback from some staff that have worked on the ward after we've implemented this. One was actually a non-core respiratory consultant who very helpfully took it upon themselves to try what we put in place. So she thought that it really helped everyone. It was done faster, and that the MDT debrief, we call it so many things, happened sooner and lasted 30 minutes in this case, but obviously we're aiming for 22. Also, the Fit to Lodge scores were updated and the EDDs were being updated as the ward round was going along rather than in the debrief meeting.
So going forward, ready for our 90-day report out, we're looking to go away and have some more conversations with the consultants. We're finding at the minute there's kind of a bit of a lack of consistency with some of the consultants in how well they are and aren't engaging in it. Certain ones much better than others. We also wanted to have a look again just at the number of people in the debrief meeting, because we found that there's still quite a lot of people in there, but it's just ensuring that everyone that's in there does actually need to be there. And then our final thing was to try and reduce the setup time back down again, and to do that what we've said is we were going to challenge the consultants. Rather than going with the 11:30 that they're ready for the debrief that they're feeling comfortable with, set a target of 11:15 and just see where we can go from there.
Thank you very much, Helen and Nadine, because I was there at the initial report out and then at your 30-day report out, and it's really clear how much progress you've made over the 60 days and even between 30 and 60 days. So that's fantastic, thank you. Any questions or comments? Helen?
That's all right. It's a comment and a compliment for you. So we know that one of our respectful behaviours is sharing information, and I think what you've done wonderfully well is both reached agreement about what your expectations of people's roles and responsibilities, and you've made them visible so that it's clear to people what those expectations are. And I think what I heard is you've also reinforced it with people and updated it when you've learnt it needs to change. So that's really a really clear demonstration that you're using the PDSA cycle and really starting to tweak this and incrementally improve it. So absolutely well done.
Jimmy?
I'm going to indulge because I know a little bit about the background here, so I'm going back to this slide, so bear with me. I think I have the benefit of working with this team. They have done an amazing job sustaining this, you've heard that. I'm just going to pick out productivity gain, because you didn't mention it, and I think it's really important. That's almost half of one person that you've given back to value-added time for your patients. That's what that means. It doesn't come across on that slide, but that's really important. So the change you've made, being willing to try and do things differently with a lead time of 22 minutes, is almost half a person back on your ward doing something valuable for patients. You know, freeing that time up is 20 minutes for all those 10 people every day that can do something more valuable.
And I honestly love the daily routine board. I think that that's really good. We've only got, I think, only James here as a doctor in training. Anybody else? But you know, how many wards do you go to and you think, oh, what happens around here? How do they do things on here? I'm sure you would think it'd be useful.
Yeah, definitely. When you rotate around, it's always nice to have a plan of kind of what's expected of you, what you need to do. So being on the wall is really nice and visible and really easy.
Yeah. Whose idea was that then?
James and a bit of all of us together, really.
Yeah.
But it was James that came up with the details of it for us.
Yeah, we've had about 4 versions, haven't we?
Yeah.
Have you? Well, that's great as well, isn't it?
Lots of colour coordinating and planning.
Yeah, okay. And despite the changes that you've made, going back to the target progress report, it's 27% still not thinking that the MDT is offering them an opportunity to learn. Have you had an opportunity to remeasure that?
So that's definitely something that we're going to be doing for the 90-day report out.
You think it's gone down?
Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? So you talked about the consultants and the variation in their practice. Have you got any ideas about how you're going to tackle that variation?
It's quite difficult for me because from a nursing perspective, the manager says do it, we do it. If you don't, there's consequences. But I think it needs to be a senior decision maker to kind of put that across, because you've got 10, 12 consultants all on the same level or with different ideas. I think it's sometimes hard to get everyone to engage.
You're absolutely right, Helen. One of the things that we know consultants respond to is competition. They like, you know, they like to be in the good box. So I don't know if there's a way that you can. Often what we do is make it consultant A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know. And then we only tell them what they are. So your consultant E, that's your performance. They absolutely want to know who everybody else is, but you don't have to tell them. But certainly we know that that often stimulates a change in behaviour. So if there's any way that you can demonstrate how your ward round is better, using certain metrics, and then you can say consultant 1, 2, 3, 4. I bet you will start to see some different kind of engagement.
Yeah, it's a bit like how for us recording our figures, we've got our figures on the board underneath, so that everyone can kind of see and can compare how they've done to how the previous days have been. And at the bottom we have also put, if this has helped, please filled in. There's chocolate as a reward at the end of it. It works with the nurses.
Yeah, it probably will work for the junior doctors. But you know, once you say something is standard work, one of the challenges for us as an organisation is going to be how the doctors also respond to standard work in the way that nurses do.
I think we're at a point now where the board is ingrained, that it's just done every morning, you don't have to tell anybody to do it and you can't miss it. It's huge. So I think that's positive.
Fantastic. Well done, and thanks very much for bearing with it. And as Helen says, you've done a really great job in sustaining this, so thank you very much. That completes Friday Report Out. Thank you very much, everybody. I think we've got one next week as well.
1st of June, back at St James.
1st of June, yeah. So for those of you who aren't working, have a happy back holiday weekend. For those of you who are working, I hope that it's not too busy a weekend. And we'll see you all again. Thanks for coming.
I think I've got my big pink badge in that.
Oh yeah.